15 doctors can't save a billionaire until the poor black boy did the unthinkable. Heart monitors screamed like a warning siren as 15 of the world's most elite doctors stood frozen, their gloved hands hovering uselessly over a man worth more than small countries. Billionaire magnate Richard Halston lay motionless on the hospital bed, chest rising shallowly, skin drained of color as alarms echoed off steel walls. Outside the glass, security guards, executives, and lawyers held their breath. Inside, time was collapsing. Every second that passed without a solution shaved millions off futures, shattered stock prices, and threatened an empire built over decades. Then, from the doorway, a small voice cut through the panic, soft, trembling, and completely ignored. The boy didn't belong there. His clothes were worn thin, his shoes mismatched, his eyes far too calm for a room drowning in fear. He was black, no older than 10, standing alone among white coats and blinking machines like a ghost no one had invited. Yet, as the billionaire's heart stuttered again, the boy stepped forward, raising something in his hand that made the doctors recoil. What he was about to do would break every rule in that room. What happened next would rewrite everything they thought they knew about power, poverty, and who was truly invisible. Just hours earlier, Richard Halston had arrived by helicopter. Rooftop lights cut through the night as paramedics rushed him inside the private wing of St. Aurelius Medical Center, the kind of hospital that didn't advertise because everyone important already knew its name. He had collapsed mid-board meeting, clutching his chest, eyes wide with disbelief. A man who had outmaneuvered governments was losing a fight against his own body. They called in everyone. Cardiologists flown in from Zurich. Neurospecialists pulled out of surgeries. A rare disease consultant who billed by the minute and never waited. 15 doctors. 15 egos. 15 resumes thick with awards, and none of them could stop the decline. His vitals don't make sense, one doctor muttered, ripping off his gloves. We've tried everything protocol allows, another snapped. His heart isn't failing normally. They shocked him once, twice, again. Nothing. Outside the room, Halston's assistants whispered frantically into phones. Stock markets in Asia were already reacting to rumors. A legal team drafted statements they prayed they wouldn't need. Inside, the billionaire's life slipped like sand through clenched fists. That was when the boy appeared. No one noticed him at first. They rarely did. He had been sitting in the hallway since morning, waiting for his mother, one of the hospital's night cleaners who couldn't afford childcare and had told him to stay quiet. Stay invisible, stay out of trouble. He had watched doctors rush past, watched machines roll by, watched panic bloom in expensive shoes. And he had recognized something no one else had. When the doors burst open and the emergency escalated, the boy followed, barely questioned by security who assumed he belonged to someone important. He pressed himself against the wall as the doctors worked, his eyes fixed not on the man, but on the monitor, the rhythm, the pauses, the pattern that didn't match the words the doctors were using. Cardiac arrest isn't the "'cause," the boy whispered to himself, when the lead surgeon finally noticed him. Irritation flashed across his face. Who let a child in here? He barked. Get him out now. The boy flinched but didn't move. Wait, another doctor said sharply. Don't distract us. But the boy stepped forward anyway. I've seen this before, he said. The room went silent for half a heartbeat, then erupted. Security. This is a sterile environment. Whose kid is that? But something in the boy's voice, steady, certain, made the head cardiologist hesitate. Seen what before? She asked. The boy swallowed. When my uncle got sick. The machine lies. That earned a scoff, kid. Machines don't lie, a doctor snapped. The boy raised his hand. Inside it was a worn sneaker lace. Knotted tightly, darkened with age. "I fixed it," he said quietly. "Last time." Laughter, sharp, nervous, cruel, rippled through the room. "We're losing him." Someone shouted, "Clear." They shocked Halston again. The monitor screamed. Still nothing. The head cardiologist stared at the flatlining rhythm, then back at the boy. "What do you mean the machine lies?" she demanded. The boy pointed not at Halston, but at the fore-pump in the cardiac lead. "Wrong pressure," he said. "Heart isn't stopping. It's being tricked." "What are you saying?" She pressed. The boy took a breath. "It's not his heart. It's his blood." Silence. 15 doctors stared at him like he'd spoken another language. "Impossible," someone muttered. "We ran labs." "You ran rich labs," the boy replied before he could stop himself. His eyes widened, afraid he'd gone too far, but the cardiologist leaned closer. "Explain." The boy swallowed again. "There's a sickness," he said, "where the blood gets thick fast. My uncle had it. Doctors said heart attack. He died. But the old clinic doctor, he said loosen first. Then treat." "Loosen what?" someone asked. The boy lifted the lace higher. The room froze. "You're suggesting we tie something?" the surgeon snapped. "That's barbaric." The boy shook his head desperately. "No release pressure. Just for a moment. Before it's too late." Another alarm shrieked. The billionaire's lips turned faintly blue. Time collapsed. The cardiologist looked around the room. At the failed attempts, the silent machines, the man dying in front of them. Then she made a decision that would end her career or save a life. "Give me 30 seconds, she said. "If I'm wrong, throw him out." Security hesitated. The boy's hands trembled as they lifted Halston's arm. "This is insane," a doctor whispered. 30 seconds, she repeated. The lace was looped, tightened, then released in a precise rhythm. The boy demonstrated hands moving with muscle memory learned in places without equipment, without funding, without second chances. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the monitor blip PED. Once. Twice. A rhythm returned, weak, irregular, but alive. The room exploded. Pulse. I'm getting vitals. Blood pressure rising. Doctors surged forward. Adrenaline flooding the space where disbelief had lived seconds earlier. The billionaire coughed just once, but it was enough to save him. Enough to change everything. The boy stepped back. Heart pounding, suddenly aware of how small he was again. No one told him to leave. No one laughed now. The cardiologist stared at him like she was seeing. The future and the past collide in one fragile frame. "What's your name?" she asked softly. The boy hesitated. "Eli," he said, and somewhere between the machines restarting and the billionaire breathing again, the world quietly shifted, though none of them yet understood how far the consequences of this moment would reach. Asterisk. The room stayed loud long after the danger passed. Machines humming, nurses calling out numbers, doctors speaking over one another in clipped, disbelieving bursts. But Eli heard none of it. His ears rang as if he just surfaced from deep water. He stood near the wall, fingers clenched around the frayed lace, waiting for someone to remember he wasn't supposed to be there. Richard Halston was alive. That single fact spread through the hospital faster than any official announcement. Phones vibrated. Doors opened and closed. Security tightened. Somewhere upstairs, a boardroom full of executives exhaled at once. Inside the ICU, the head cardiologist finally removed her mask and looked at the boy again. Really looked this time. Dirt under his nails. A shirt too big at the shoulders. Eyes that held both fear and something sharper. "Experience." "Eli," she said, testing the name. "How did you know?" The room quieted. Even the most arrogant among them wanted the answer. Eli shrugged. a reflex learned from years of avoiding attention. "My uncle," he said. He worked docks. When he got sick, doctors said heart attack. But his blood, it was different. Old doctors said pressure first. Always pressure. "That's not in any textbook," one surgeon muttered. Eli nodded. "Textbooks don't come where I'm from." No one snapped back. They were still absorbing the impossible truth. 15 specialists. Millions of dollars of equipment, and a child from the hallway had seen what they missed. A nurse approached, kneeling to Eli's height. "Where's your parents, sweetheart?" "My mom's cleaning," Eli replied. "Night shift." The nurse's mouth tightened. Before anyone could say more, the doors swung open. Security parted as a man in an immaculate suit strode in. Silver hair slicked back, eyes blazing with a mix of relief and fury. Charles Winhalston's chief of staff, fixer, and gatekeeper. Who authorized a minor in the ICU? He demanded. The cardiologist stepped forward. "I did." Win froze. "You?" "He saved Mr. Halston's life." Silence hit like a dropped plate. Win's gaze snapped to Eli, scanning him like a threat assessment gone wrong. "That's impossible." "So is your boss being alive?" the cardiologist replied coolly. Win exhaled slowly. "Get the boy out," he said at last. "We'll discuss this later." Eli's stomach dropped. He hadn't expected praise. He'd expected this, the quiet erasing. 2 security guards stepped closer. Gentler now, but firm. "It's okay," Eli murmured, backing away. He turned once, glancing at the man in the bed, the billionaire, whose life had brushed against his for less than a minute. Richard Halston's eyes were open, weak, unfocused but open. They found Eli in the hallway minutes later, sitting on the floor with his back against a vending machine, knees pulled to his chest. His mother stood over him, panic-stricken, whispering apologies in a rush. "I told him to stay put," she said to the guard. "He's a good boy, I swear." "It's fine," the guard said awkwardly. "He's not in trouble." She blinked. "He's not?" The guard glanced away. Not even close. Word traveled fast, but understanding traveled slow. By morning, the official story had taken shape, an unconventional intervention, an inspired call by a brilliant team. Eli's name appeared nowhere, but Richard Halston remembered. When he woke fully, hours later, pain radiating through his chest like a warning not yet finished. He asked one question before any other. "Where's the kid?" Doctors exchanged looks. "What kid?" "The boy," Halston insisted, voice hoarse. "The one with the lace." The cardiologist stepped forward. "His name is Eli." "Find him," Halston said. Now, they did downstairs in a maintenance corridor where Eli waited with his mother for her shift to end. She stiffened when the entourage approached, ready to defend him. Halston raised a hand. Stopping everyone, he looked smaller from the wheelchair. But his eyes, those hadn't lost their edge. "You saved my life," he said to Eli. Eli stared at the floor. "I just did what I knew." Halston nodded slowly. "What you knew is more than 15 experts knew." He turned to the cardiologist. "Why wasn't he in the room when I woke up?" No one answered. Halston's jaw tightened. "I built my empire by listening to voices others ignored," he said quietly. "Seems I forgot my own rule." He faced Eli again. "How old are you?" 10. "Do you go to school?" Eli hesitated. His mother answered softly. "When we can afford the bus." Halston closed his eyes for a moment. "Charles," he said, not raising his voice. "Cancel my meetings." "All of them." Wynn's eyes widened. "Sir, now." The next hours unfolded like a storm no one could stop. A private tutor was arranged before lunch. A scholarship fund by dinner. By nightfall, A temporary apartment near the hospital. Until we sort something permanent. Eli's mother cried quietly in corners, she thought. No one saw, but not everyone was celebrating. In a glass-walled office on the top floor, the head of medical administration watched the news crawl across a muted TV. Rumors, leaks, whispers of a miracle child. Liability flashed red in his mind. If this gets out, he said to Wynne, we look incompetent. Wynne nodded. Which is why it won't. Across the city, other forces took interest: investors who saw opportunity, rivals who smelled weakness, and doctors who felt something far worse than embarrassment threatened. The next morning, Eli arrived for a follow-up visit with Halston only to find security blocking the corridor. Hospital policy, they said. No minors in critical care. But Mr. Halston asked for him, the cardiologist protested. The administrator folded his hands. And I said no. Eli listened from behind his mother. Heart sinking. He had stepped into a world that ran on power. Not gratitude. And power, he was about to learn, does not like being reminded it's fallible. Upstairs, Richard Halston stared at the ceiling. Fury simmering beneath the monitor's calm rhythm. They thought they could decide who mattered. They were wrong. Asterisk, the crackdown came quietly, wrapped in policy language and clipped smiles. Eli felt it before anyone explained it. The guards who had once nodded now avoided his eyes. The nurses who'd whispered encouragements suddenly found reasons to be elsewhere. His badge temporary, printed in a rush, stopped opening doors. This is just protocol, the administrator said smoothly, standing between Eli and the ICU doors like a polite wall. We can't have untrained minors influencing patient care. Influencing? Eli's mother repeated, disbelief sharpening her voice. He saved his life. That's a narrative, the man replied. Not a fact. Upstairs, Richard Halston learned what it meant to be alive but not in control. His orders were delayed. His requests filtered. His chief of staff spoke in soothing tones that sounded suspiciously like stall tactics. When Halston demanded Eli's presence again, he was told the boy was resting and that it was for the best. For whose best? Halston snapped. No one answered. By afternoon, a memo circulated, a formal review into the incident. Language like unauthorized interference and risk exposure appeared in bold. The miracle was being rebranded as a mistake that happened to end well. Eli sat in the apartment Halston had arranged, staring at a television that showed nothing about him. His mother paced, phone pressed to her ear, trying to reach anyone, who could explain why security had escorted them out earlier. They said we were disrupting operations, she whispered after hanging up. Disrupting. Eli looked down at his hands. They still smelled faintly of antiseptic. That night, the knock came. 2 men in suits, hospital IDs clipped like badges of authority. They spoke softly, carefully. We just need to ask a few questions, one said. Clear up some inconsistencies. They asked Eli to recount everything. He did. Then they asked again, slower, pressing on details that hadn't mattered before. Who told you to intervene? No one. Did you touch any equipment? I moved the pillow. Did any doctor approve your actions? They were busy. The men exchanged glances. Eli, the other said gently, do you understand how dangerous it is to interfere with medical procedures? I understand it's dangerous to do nothing, Eli replied. Silence thickened. The next morning, headlines broke, not about a miracle boy, but about an internal investigation into reckless protocol violations at Halston Medical Center. Anonymous sources questioned whether a child's presence had endangered a billionaire patient. Public opinion wavered. Online, comments split. Some called Eli a hero. Others called it staged. A few accused Halston of manufacturing a feel-good story to distract from corporate scandals. By noon, the hospital's board convened without Halston. By evening, Eli's scholarship was under review. Richard Halston watched it unfold from his bed, rage simmering into something colder. He had built systems like this. He knew exactly how they crushed inconvenient truths. "Charles," he said quietly, "how long have they been doing this?" Wynne hesitated. "Too long." Halston closed his eyes. "Bring me the footage." "There is none," Wynne said. "The ICU cameras were undergoing maintenance." Halston smiled thinly. "Then bring me the maintenance logs." They did. What they showed was not negligence, but erasure. Timestamps altered. Access logs scrubbed. A child edited out of the narrative as neatly as a typo. Halston's smile vanished. Meanwhile, Eli's world shrank. The tutor stopped calling. The apartment manager mentioned a temporary arrangement. At school, kids whispered, some in awe, others in suspicion. "You think you're special now?" One boy sneered. Eli said nothing. Late that night, his mother found him sitting on the floor, holding the old sneaker lace. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked. Her heart broke. "No," she said fiercely. "You did something right in a world that hates surprises." The breaking point came 3 days later. A formal notice arrived, thick with legal language. It stated that Eli was prohibited from entering Halston Medical Center pending investigation. It warned against public statements. It suggested cooperation for his own protection. Eli's mother crumpled the paper. Across the city, Richard Halston read the same notice sent, inexplicably, to his room. That was the moment he stopped waiting. He requested a board-wide address. They tried to postpone it. He insisted. They cited medical concerns. He smiled and reminded them who paid their salaries. An hour later, executives filled a conference hall, uneasy murmurs bouncing off glass walls. Cameras were forbidden. Phones collected. Halston was wheeled in. He did not look weak. "I woke up in this hospital because a child saw what you didn't," he began, voice steady. "Instead of asking why, you asked how to make him disappear." The room stiffened. "You speak of liability," Halston continued. "Let me be clear. The greatest liability in this room is not a boy with courage. It's a system that punishes it." The administrator stood. "Sir, with respect, this is about compliance. It's about control," Halston cut in. "And you've lost it." He gestured to the screen behind him. Footage played backup recordings, pulled from a server no one had thought to sanitize. Grainy, imperfect, undeniable. Eli, standing by the bed, acting while others froze. Gasps rippled through the room. Halston's voice dropped. "Effective immediately, this board is dissolved pending external review. Several of you will remain for questioning." Chaos erupted. Downstairs, Eli felt his phone buzz. A single message lit the screen. "Come back. I need you here." For the first time since it all began, Eli allowed himself to hope. But hope, he was learning, always came with a cost, and the reckoning was not over yet. Asterisk. The hospital woke to a different kind of silence the morning Eli returned. Not the hush of antiseptic halls or the respectful quiet around IQ beds, but the tense stillness that comes before a storm breaks. Security stood straighter. Administrators whispered. Phones buzzed with messages no one wanted to read aloud. Eli walked in holding his mother's hand, his steps slow but steady. He wore the same worn sneakers, the same faded shirt, but something had shifted. People moved out of his way without realizing they were doing it. At the far end of the corridor, Richard Halston waited. He was no longer in a hospital gown. He stood on his own feet, a tailored suit draped over a body still recovering but unbowed. His eyes found Eli instantly. "You came," Halston said. You asked, Eli replied. Halston nodded once. I owe you more than an invitation. They didn't hug. They didn't need to. What passed between them was heavier than gratitude. It was recognition. Within the hour, the building filled. Press vans lined the street. Independent regulators arrived with binders and warrants. A federal health oversight team took over an entire floor. The board members who had tried to erase a child now sat pale and silent in glass-walled rooms. Halston stood before them all. I built this hospital to save lives, he said, his voice carrying through microphones and murmurs. Somewhere along the way, it learned how to protect itself instead. He turned slightly, gesturing toward Eli. This boy acted when trained professionals froze. Instead of asking what we could learn from him, we asked how to bury him. Cameras flashed. The investigation concludes today, Halston continued. And it concludes with accountability. Names were read. Positions terminated. Medical licenses suspended pending review. The administrator who'd spoken of narratives was escorted out, face gray, eyes hollow. Outside, the story exploded. Not the sanitized version. Not the one stripped of risk and courage. The real one. Footage spread. Testimonies followed. Nurses spoke up about understaffing, about fear of reprimand, about protocols weaponized into excuses. Doctors admitted, some through tears, that they'd been trained to wait for clearance even when seconds mattered. And at the center of it all was a boy who hadn't waited. Eli's face appeared everywhere: screens, papers, feeds. But this time, no one was asking how to silence him. They were asking how to listen. That afternoon, Halston called a private meeting. Just him, Eli, Eli's mother. No cameras. No lawyers. I can't undo what they put you through, Halston said. But I can make sure it never happens again. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was not money. It was a charter. The Eli Grant Initiative. A nationwide program focused on emergency response instincts, empowering bystanders and rewriting protocols that punished initiative. Funded fully. Protected legally. Named publicly. I want you to help design it, Halston said. When you're ready. Eli looked up, startled. I'm just a kid. Halston smiled. So was I when I learned the wrong lessons. You learned the right ones. Eli's mother covered her mouth, tears finally breaking free. In the weeks that followed, the world adjusted. Hospitals revised training. Emergency drills changed language from await instruction to act decisively. A case study circulated in medical schools, the day a child saved a billionaire. Eli went back to school. It wasn't easy. Fame never is. But something else followed him now: respect. Teachers listened. Students asked questions instead of mocking. When someone whispered, it wasn't doubt. It was awe. One afternoon, Eli received a letter, handwritten, from a nurse who'd been in the room that day. I froze. It read, I won again. Because of you. Eli folded it carefully and placed it with the others. Months later, Halston Medical Center reopened its ICU under new leadership. On the wall near the entrance, a plaque was installed, not with a name in gold, but with a sentence, when the moment demands courage, act. No titles, no hierarchies. Just truth. On the anniversary of the incident, Halston stood beside Eli at a small ceremony. The boy was taller now. Still quiet. Still watching everything. Do you know why you saved me? Halston asked softly. Eli thought for a long moment. Because I was there, he said. And because no one else moved. Halston nodded. That's how change always starts. As the crowd applauded, Eli didn't smile. He didn't wave. He looked out at the doctors, the nurses, the administrators, and met their eyes one by one. not as a symbol, not as a story, but as a reminder that sometimes the unthinkable isn't a miracle. It's simply the moment someone decides to do what others are too afraid to do. And once the world sees that clearly, it can never pretend it didn't.